Hello and welcome to this video on how to create a Ableton Live session for a performance. In this video we're going to be looking at how to import our stems into Ableton, look at editing the stems in Ableton's arrange view, then using the function consolidate to new scene to create clips to perform with in session view. The way we're going to be looking at performing within this session is we're going to be looking at performing with clips of the different sections of one song. You can do this with lots of different songs, but we're just going to be looking at one song for today. So let's jump straight in. Before importing any stems, what we're going to do is we're going to look at a couple of parameters and settings to change. First off is your tempo. You need to double click and change the tempo to the tempo that matches your song on the tempo of your stems. Okay, and then we want to go to file or live, sorry, and go to preferences, and we're going to go down to this section here, which is record, warp, and launch, and we're going to turn off a section which says auto warp long samples. What that function is, it's a bit like Logic's flex time, in that it recognizes the transient information and tries warping it to the grid in Ableton. But with what I found with when you're importing stems that are all at the same length, Ableton gets a little bit confused and kind of moves them out of sync with each other. So I turn that off, and it seems to work when importing. All the stems seem to sit nicely in sync with each other. Okay, so that's two important things to think about before importing the stems. Okay, now we're going to go to the browser window, which is this little triangle here in Ableton. And in the browser window in Ableton, this is where we find all our instruments, audio effects, and plugins and such. But we're going to be looking at this thing here called Places. Now in Places, if we click Add Folder, it opens up a Finder window. And what this does is a way for us to create a shortcut to a folder that holds samples or stems elsewhere on our computer. And this just makes it a lot more easier than minimizing Ableton's window and reopening it up. So if we click here, it shows you all my stems that are available to import into Ableton in this folder. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to import these stems, but I'm going to import them into the other view in Ableton. So this is what you call session view in Ableton. This is the famous kind of alien looking view in Ableton, but we're going to be looking at arrange view to start off with, which is the more traditional kind of DAW layout. First off, we're going to delete the two MIDI files here because we don't need them. Just be looking at importing audio files to start off with. And then what we're going to do is we're going to highlight them all. If you don't know how to select everything in a Mac, you just simply click on the first one, and then you literally hold Shift and click on the last one there, and that selects them all. Now what we're going to do to import them on, we're going to drag them in, and as we drag, we're going to hold down Command, and what that will do is it tell Ableton to put them on their own individual tracks. And then before you take your fingers off the keyboard, you must remember to take your finger off the left hand clicker button on the mouse before Command, because if you take your finger off the Command button first, Ableton will as a default try and put it all on one audio track, and like I said, we want it on separate ones. Okay, so I'll go and do that, holding down Command and then clicking on the mouse, dragging it in, letting go of the mouse, and then letting go of Command. And then you see it's put it all onto their own individual channels. So I'm just going to delete the first channel here. That's a surplus channel, and I'm going to minimize the browser window so we can see all the lovely stuff. And then I'm just going to press minus, or shift and minus. Oh, Isn't that working? And click in the view. There we go, Craig. So you click in the view, and to zoom in and out, minus to zoom out, and then it's shift and plus to zoom in. Great. So now we can see the overview of our song. And what we're going to do is we're going to now just tidy it up a bit, and we're going to change the colors, and we're going to rename the tracks. Okay. So how we rename tracks, we just double click or just click on our audio here, and the global kind of shortcut for renaming something within Ableton is Command R. That, and just simply type, I'm going to type this one bass, so that's what the WAV file is there. Then I'm going to select next one, Command R, and call it drums. Command R again, perk. Command R again, and track. There we go. And then I'm going to redo the colors just to show you how to do it. How you do it is right click and say let's go pink for the bass. Same on the clip. All I'm doing here is right clicking, add drums, and let's go like a baby blue. There you go. Cushion, maybe like a, I don't know, like a pale yellowy sort of color. Oh, wrong one there. This guy. The last one, maybe like a kind of pastel color there. Nice. Okay, so now we've colored up our individual tracks and labeled them with what each kind of WAV is playing. So let's have a listen to what's going on here. So I'm just double checking there that they're all in sync, and it seems to be all in sync. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in some markers, and this will enable us to identify the different sections of the song, and it will enable us to be able to use this function which we're going to look at in a minute, which is called consolidate to new scene. So first off, how we input a marker is we use this button up here which is called set. If I just press it there, you see that it dropped in a marker over here, and it's called it number 1. So what's really cool about these markers in Ableton is you can double click on the top of the marker, which looks like a flag or a play button, and that will play from that marker. You can also rename it by clicking on it once, and you guessed it, it's Command R, intro. There we go. And then all we're going to do is listen through to the next part of the song. And did you notice what happened there? As I was playing through the song, I pressed set, and it dropped in a marker as we were playing through. So this is quite handy if you're not too sure on the arrangement of your song. You can simply listen through to your song. Every time you hear a different section change, press set, and it'll drop in a new marker. Okay, so let's listen from the verse. So I'm just going to double click on the marker so I can play from there. And there we go, there was the different section of the song, which is the chorus. Again, one click, Command R, chorus. Okay, so let's just find the end of the chorus and then That'd be it. Okay, so again, double click on the chorus. Okay, and that's the end of the chorus there. Again, I'll click on it once, press Command R, and this is another verse. And then just as I can see here, the chorus comes in here again. So I'm just going to click there and press Set, put in a marker, rename, or Command R, and then chorus. And there we have it. It kind of looks a bit more clearer to see what's going on here, right? Okay, so then what we need to do now is we need to cut these guys up into loops. So you can have it so it plays through the whole verse and we'll loop the whole verse again. You can have it plays through the whole chorus and then it'll play through the chorus again, or you can just cut it up into the chord sequences, and that's what we're going to look at now. So the intro section, you can see it's pretty small, so we can have that just as one loop there, looping round until we tell it to go into the verse. And how we do this is we simply click on the marker once, and we right click, and we select this function here, which is loop to next locator. What it's done is it's created like a little loop window up here that we can now select, and it highlights all this area here. Now we can right click on this loop area here, and it gives us a bunch of options here. And we're going to look at this function here, which is consolidate time to new scene. And click on that, and it's done something. But what it's done is it's created that highlighted section, the loop window, it's created into loops for all the individual WAV files there. So if I press play on this scene here, it will just loop this round indefinitely. So what you've created here is you've created a scene. Now what a scene is, so in Ableton, when you have it in this session view, if you imagine it like a mixer on a PA, you have these individual kind of different colored buttons here, which we call clips. What the clips are, they're just visual representations of a looping waveform. Okay, if I double click on where the writing is, I get a kind of view of what's inside that clip, like under the car bonnet. And you see it's looped. And here I don't have any information going on. This would be our WAV, this would be where our kind of transient information would be. But there's no bass on the intro. And I can minimize that. I'll go to the drums. You can see I got some stuff going on there, and it's looped. If I press play, see the playhead goes by. It's the end. Loops back around again. Same for the percussion file. Same for the track file. So what I did there was I pressed this play button here, which this play button here is in what you call a scene. Now what a scene is, it's a line of multiple clips. Like I say, these clips are looping WAV files. So it's almost like a line of loops. And we can press this play button here and it plays all the files in that line together. I'll stop it, and then to turn them off you have to do a global stop, which is this one down here, which is stop all clips. I can play the clips individually, so I could start off with this drum here and bring in this percussion, and bring in this percussion, So you can already see how you can start playing around with the arrangement of your song. If you notice here already, when I press the play, it launches it perfectly in time. So what it does up here, you have a quantization of the launch. So it's set as a default to 1 bar. And what that means is it will play it on the first beat of the following bar whenever you click it. So say if I wanted it to click on play on the first beat of bar 1, say the bar before, I'd have to click anywhere in that bar for it to automatically launch on 1. Now when I first started playing in Ableton, I had the problem of I was always trying to launch it directly on the first beat and slightly missing it and being slightly behind the beat, so it would roll into the next bar and then it would trigger a whole bar late, which is not ideal, right? So what I do now is I trigger it on around beat 2 of the previous bar. So say if we wanted it to trigger, if I do one here, press play on the drums. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it brings it in. So as long as you trigger it, say beat 2 on the bar before you want it to launch, it's going to come in perfectly in time. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply drag this scene right up to the top. So it's the number 1 scene. Okay. So now this is our intro. Again, we can rename the scene by clicking on it. Command R, and we'll call this intro. Okay, so we'll go back into the arrange view. If you notice something's happened, it's grayed itself out. What we're going to do is we're going to unmute this section. It automatically, any clips you play in the session view, it mutes the corresponding track in the arrange view, just so you don't get any kind of conflicting audio files playing with each other, so you don't get any, you know, that sounds like when 2 files play with each other at a time. Horrible. That doesn't happen. Okay, so now we need to find a verse loop of chords. Just for ease, I'm just going to do the verse all the way through here. Okay, so I'm just going to go click, loop to next locator, select it all, consolidate time to new scene. It's done it. And then what I hear, I'm going to do the chorus, loop to next locator, consolidate time to new scene, and then just say we'll do the next verse, loop to next locator, consolidate time to new scene. And that's done. And then in this file we should have all our different sections of the song. Okay, it's just mirrored this title here. If you remember, the first one we did was verse 1, so we can go ahead and rename that. Verse 1. Here was chorus, rename chorus, and here was verse 2. Verse 2. And then I'm just going to delete the excess scenes apart from the one below. I'm just going to name this stop. And I do this just out of personal preference because you can play the scene and it will stop all the tracks rather than having to jump down here. I just find it a bit easier. So I press play on the intro. That's going to loop around until I want to launch the verse. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now the verse will play through that whole section that I highlighted and consolidated to new scene in this view. But I can launch the chorus early if I want to. So as long as I, figure out where the chord sequences change, launch it the bar before on beat 2, will come on the first bar, 2, 3, 4. We're into the chorus. And then I can go to verse 2 early. 2, 3, 4. And then this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring into the intro and then just stop it. One, 2, 3, 4. 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Stops it. That is how you get a performance within Ableton from editing your stems in the other view. You can go ahead and rename these clips if you want to, so they've just kind of done a preset name. Let's say if you wanted it to call this intro bass, click on it, Command R, say intro bass. Again, what these things called clips are, they're just visual kind of aids to help you be able to play the waveform that is hidden here, you know. And like I said, this one doesn't be there, so you can delete it or you can keep it there because it looks pretty and all symmetrical. Okay, I hope this helps.